Welcome to the Color of People podcast. I'm Jim Goffio. That's a mic check. I'm Jim Goffio. On this channel, we're going to talk about this book I wrote a few years ago. It's based on the lives of two extraordinary people, one being my father and the other being a boy named Sultan Syed. My father, Joe, was born in Brooklyn, New York in the 1950s. He was the eighth of 10 children. My grandparents, James and Ruth, they had 5 boys and 5 girls, not in that order, scattered about. And they didn't have any money. They were poor. They worked really hard for what they did have, but they did have each other. When my father was a teenager, he fell in with a few bad seeds. Not all of them, though. I mean, some of his friends were really good and were really decent people, and they're still his friends to this day. But there were a few that my father was kind of going down a path he didn't like, and he decided he was going to make a change in his life, so he joined the Navy. He spent time overseas in Japan before coming home and starting a family and eventually becoming a police officer in New York City. He did that for over 20 years before he retired. The other main person in this story is Sultan Syed. He was an 8-year-old boy that was full of life, full of love, just a charismatic, confident kid. His parents came over from Afghanistan, and they found success, and they found each other here. They had 3 beautiful children, Sultan being the middle child. And one day, Sultan went out to play football with his friends in the snow, and he got really fatigued and really sick. He just started throwing up everywhere. And so his mom took him to the doctor, as moms will do. And they thought he had the flu. Not the flu. Thought he had mono. Not mono. As they dug deeper and ran more tests, they found that it was leukemia. It's words a parent never wants to hear and never expect to hear, and hopefully you never have to hear. This book is about 2 completely different people from completely different worlds coming together for something beautiful. And that's what I want this channel to be, this podcast to be, are these beautiful stories of triumph or, stories of loss, the lasting memories of the people we've said goodbye to, the struggle, the pain that we go through of having somebody go through this and losing them, or, having them overcome it. No matter what age, I want to know how we deal with the tragedy, or even just getting the news of a loved one being sick, or how you handle the news of you hearing that diagnosis. It's a horrible disease that affects so many people. It affects someone you know, of course. I mean, at least someone you know is affected by cancer in some form, whether it be a parent, whether it be a family member, whether it be themselves. I talk about this story. It's called The Color of People. It was originally titled One, and I named it that because I was like, oh, cool, solidarity, one, love, kind of, we're these are 2 different people, but we're all of the same, we're all human. I also didn't want it to get lost in the shuffle, though. One just seemed like a very generic name, and so we came up with One, Brothers in Blue, because there's a picture of Sultan dressed in New York City police clothes, hugging my father, who's dressed in his blues. And it was a good idea. But I was like, well, I don't want people to just think that this is a police story, and it's not. Even with my father being a police officer, it's so much more than that. And my father is so much more than that. And then one day I was sitting in my car, getting ready to go to the store, and like a wave of energy had just hit me, The Color of People. And it made so much sense. And I was like, that's what this story is about. It's about people. The color of who we are, the content of our character. And it makes me think of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., we celebrated his life last week. And he says, I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. And I think that this is about the content of these people's character and how they dealt with this and how they dealt with other problems, with losing people along the way or just being an outcast. And that's truly the meaning of the color of people. You have this Afghan American boy and this Italian American man, and that they were just destined for something so much more. So we're going to talk more about that. We're going to have guests on. And, with this channel, it's not just going to be about the book. It's going to be about you guys. And, I want you to share your story. And you can send me your story at goffioproductions@gmail.com. And your story doesn't have to be just like this. It can be something else. This story happened because my father was in his police station, the 6-2 precinct in Brooklyn. And he was getting coffee, as my father does. Cream, no sugar. And there's a bulletin board in front of him. And it's a bulletin board full of white flyers of cops looking for side work, filming weddings, dog walking, just whatever you needed. They were there. But in the sea of white was this one blue flyer. So it stood out and it caught my father's attention. And it was a flyer to donate blood to see if you were going to be a match for this young girl. And my father saw it, and it just spoke to him. And this had to have been about 1988 or 89. And so him and his partner went down and donated blood. Unfortunately, my father didn't end up being a match for this girl, and she did pass. It's crazy how stuff like that happens, and how fate and just sometimes the stars will align for someone else. As unfortunate as it is that girl lost her life. This story is pretty special. Writing this book was an honor. If you would like a chance to win a signed copy of The Color of People, you can donate $1 right there somewhere. We'll include that link too. And that gives you one entry. The more you donate, the more chances you have of winning. Even if you don't win, you're still donating for a good cause. Money from the donation will go to St. Jude's, Memorial Sloan Kettering, and the National Pediatric Cancer Foundation. Or you could just straight up buy the book, and that money will go towards the same thing. Our goal here is for this story to reach as many people as possible, to give those out there hope where it's needed. Now, not a false sense of hope, because we're aware that not everybody will survive. And it's a disease that is tough. It is relentless. It knows no bounds. And we're gonna be on here. We're gonna laugh. There's gonna be stories we laugh. And we're going to cry, and that's okay. I'm okay with that. I'm a crier. Next week, we're going to talk about somebody close to me and how their illness affected my life and the lives of those around me. And so be sure to subscribe. Definitely press that like button. It always helps. So tune in next Wednesday, February 3rd, for an all-new episode of the Color of People podcast. Thank you.